What about the accusations that, like, even the Jesus story was taken from other myths and other religions? I think, like, the Egyptian god.
Like, even the people who doubt that Jesus exists don't use that argument, because usually historians are aware of the primary sources. And if you look at the stories of, like, Horus, Ra, Mithras, Attis, if you look at the details and then try to find the parallels, they're just not there. So if you look at the actual stories of, like, Horus, Ra, the accusations of virgin births and 12 disciples, and you won't find them in those things.
Did Jesus steal from the Egyptian god Horus or Osiris? Wes Huff is going to answer that very question, and so many people seem to think that Jesus is just a copycat. So we're going to get right into it. Make sure to watch till the end, because I'm going to be giving my commentary all the way through. This is absolutely amazing.
So there's this battle between Maxentius, who's the leader of the West, and Constantine, who's the leader of the East, and they fight for the unification of, and so
the empire.
The story is, whether you want to consider it reliable or not, is that Constantine and his army have a vision of the Chi-Rho, what looks like a P and an X. It's the first two letters in Greek for the word Christ, and hear a voice that says, "In this sign, conquer." And so he puts that on all his shields. And even though they're going against the Praetorian Guard, which is like the elite fighting force of Maxentius, they win. And so after that point, he starts to, like, okay, what's going on here with this? I used the sign of the Christian God, and I won. And so and then we do have testimony of other early Christians who seem to give credibility to the fact that he does, in fact, legitimately convert. And part of that is that if he wanted to exert power, he could just do what Diocletian did and say, "I'm God,
so I'm gonna kill everybody.
What I say goes." And he doesn't do that. So
it's interesting the way that this is taught. The way that it's taught, it was, to me as like a kid, was that there was so much momentum for the growth of Christianity within the empire that they had no choice but to convert.
Yeah, it's
why even teach that? Like,
I mean, why does anybody teach anything?
I guess, but I think it does a disservice to, like, the choice at the time. Like, it's a pretty brave choice in that regard for Constantine. Like,
yeah, and it certainly would not have been popular.
I thought he was succumbing to the will of the people.
No,
I thought it was a train. There was a runaway train. There's nothing he could do about it. He's like, the only way that we can keep the empire together is we start following that. And then there's all this conversation of them, like, including pagan rituals into this new version of Christianity, which I'd love you to speak on, so that the pagans would more easily adopt it.
Yeah.
But you're telling me that this is just, like, completely false.
So there are, like, there are kernels of that's true, in the sense that, like, Christians would do things like build churches over the sites of old temples, in that they said, like, you're coming here anyways to worship. Now worship the true God in the same location that you're regularly aware of going to anyways. But the assimilation of pagan practices, that's a myth.
How do we get the eggs in Easter?
That's a Middle Age thing, because eggs were associated with both new life and spring in Europe. It's a European thing.
Christmas. How do we get Santa?
Santa is like a combination of Saint Nicholas, who is a 4th century bishop, and Sinterklaas in Germany. I think it's a New York thing. I think eventually the Dutch in New York.
That's fire. Good for y'all.
You're gonna take credit for that one?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he should. He should.
Yeah.
Him and him.
And so it, like, all comes together.
So this doesn't exist prior.
What?
The celebration of Christmas.
Oh, no, Christmas goes really old. Yeah. So there's a guy named Julius Africanus in the 2nd century who's preoccupied with figuring out how old everything is, and, you know, how he gives us the date for the creation of the world, and then he, like, adds up. So part of what he's doing is he's a Christian, and he's like, when was Jesus born? So he looks at a bunch of different things, and he reckons that he's figured out when Jesus was, like, when when Mary got pregnant, and then he counts 9 months and gets to December 25th. And so that's, is it 24th or 25th? Why did I blank?
25th.
I was right.
Oh, you know why?
I just ran with it. Why?
When do the true Christians celebrate it?
January 6th.
It's so funny how I see so many people online saying that Andrew Schultz is Orthodox. I don't think he is. And second of all, Christmas has always been a Christian holiday. No, it is not from pagan rituals. Santa Claus is from St. Nicholas. I never heard of the other one, so that's interesting. And
What's going on?
So the Orthodox do it on January 6th. But it's the same date. We just use different calendars. That's why. Oh. You guys stuck with the old calendar. We went to the new calendar. It's the exact same date. Our calendars changed.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What about Halloween?
Halloween is All Hallows Eve, and the pagan stuff appears to have been entirely invented by commercialization.
So you're saying there's no pagan influence on Christianity?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the accusations of Christmas is pagan, Easter is pagan, that's nonsense.
What about the accusations that even the Jesus story was taken from other myths in other religions? I think the Egyptian god Ra or something like that. What do you say about this? Is it just a common occurrence? How do you feel? Is it?
Yes.
Really?
Well, it's Jesus mythicism, and no historian, even the people who doubt that Jesus exists, don't use that argument, because usually historians are aware of the primary sources. And if you look at the stories of Horus, Ra, Mithras, Attis, if you look at the details and then try to find the parallels, they're just not there. It was made up largely and popularized by the
Dan Brown?
Oh. The movie
yeah,
it's like a YouTube thing.
Yeah.
It's made up from thin air. So if you look at the actual stories of Horus, Ra, the accusations of virgin births and 12 disciples, and you won't find them in those things.
You have no idea how many people bring that up when they try to debate Cliff. They're like, Jesus just copied Horus from Egypt. He's just a copycat. There's so many similarities. He was born of a virgin. No. Nowhere's close, guys. When you look it up, I believe Osiris was a god, and he got cut up into 12 pieces because he lost this battle and got spread out all around the world. And then Isis, his sister, comes and finds all the pieces together besides one. And then somehow they make love, and then Horus comes about. How does that correlate here? Nothing alike.
Really? And isn't there connectivity to some Indian?
I think the story of baby Krishna, I think there's some connectivity in that. I think he was the king tried to kill him, couldn't do it.
So it's not that there aren't parallels that you can make. Yeah. It's that if you look at the actual core of the details. So there's a fallacy called the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where it's this idea that Texan is shooting in the side of a barn, and he then finds the closest cluster of shots, and he paints a target around it, making himself look like a great shot, right? So if you want to find parallels, you can find them.
And then you make the accusation afterwards.
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
Let me see if I can give you an example. So John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln were both, the presidencies were exactly 100 years apart. And Abraham Lincoln had an assistant by the name of Kennedy, and Kennedy had an assistant by the name of Lincoln. Both were assassinated by a man who went by three names, right? John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Kennedy was assassinated in a Lincoln.
Yeah.
And Lincoln was assassinated in the Ford Theater.
Yeah.
So, if you want to go down the rabbit trail of trying to find all these things, you could argue that John F. Kennedy never existed. He was just a copy of Lincoln. And
that's
the great one is that before Lincoln died, he was in Monroe, Maryland, and before JFK died,
he was in
Marilyn Monroe.
Hey! No.
Bad. Shout out to Wes Huff for being like, nah, I didn't say that. At first he's like, yeah. Oh, wait. I just realized what he said. Shoot.
Mark did. But it's these kind of things, right? So you
that's
can
beautiful.
find parallels.
I saw this on a VHS when I was 8 years old.
That's good. That's a credible source.
Details are... it's a story of baby Krishna. But the details are a little iffy. But I remember growing up in such a Christian country that I was like, oh, they took this from the Bible.
Right.
But I didn't know Hinduism was older and the story of Krishna was older. So that just came to me. That wasn't like... I'm trying to find the thing, and that always just stuck with me. Because I remember thinking like, oh, they stole this from Christianity, which is very funny.
So there's also like issues of correlation and causation. So if you do find parallels and you want to assert that Christians invented it, you have to find the causative links rather than just the correlations.
Yeah.
Because the correlations could actually exist, but things correlate all the time.
Yeah.
And the idea of an incarnation within Christianity is very different than the idea that you would find in something like Hinduism or even like miraculous births in the ancient world.
Okay, question. Did Judas carry out the will of God by killing Jesus?
Yes, because he was prophesied to do so.
And was he aware of this? Did he do it begrudgingly?
I mean, I don't know. That's not something that the Bible necessarily. There is an interesting theory that Judas was fed up with Jesus not being the Messiah he wanted him to be, and by betraying him, he was going to kickstart the revolution.
That's what I've always heard. Like, it just seems like he was hoping for a Messiah. He was hoping for a ruler to be a part of the kingdom on this earth. And when he realized that Jesus is not trying to build a kingdom on this earth, he's just like, screw it. I need to get something out of this. That's just another thought.
Impatient.
Yeah. But it's hypothetical, right? You can't say one way or the other.
That's something you would do, to be honest.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Chop, chop.
These New York Orthodox.
Yeah. Dude, New York Orthodox. That's a fire type of Christianity. I like that. I don't want to see him. Yes, go.
Hold on,
go,
I got
go.
something for you.
Yeah,
Cause when I was on Rogan, I made him a facsimile papyri.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it was a very important facsimile papyri.
I remember watching it.
P52, and it says the pilot, what is truth?
Yes.
I made you one.
Oh,
But okay, order of importance. I also made Mark one. So
Yes.
because Mark likes the apocryphal gospels. This is that's the Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, wow.
That's the first page of the Gospel of Thomas.
Mark, that's your guy. Aren't you Mark Thomas
Mark
Gagnon?
Thomas.
Yeah, and that's made of genuine Egyptian papyri.
Oh, wow.
That's sick.
Yours,
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So order of lesser importance to great importance, because yours
Yes.
is far more important.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
this is a Dead Sea Scroll fragment.
What?
Okay. I made it.
Yes.
And it's very important. 4Q51 is from
Yes.
Samuel, and I got the text there for you. Make sure you read it. What it says in Hebrew.
This is Assalamu alaikum.
Does not.
Alaikum salam.
Read it.
It says, Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, Give me my wife Michal,
McCall, yeah.
okay, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins.
Very, very important passage for you.
Can you tell me what I just read? 'Cause I was concentrating so much on
Well, I tried to
getting
find
the words out without sounding retarded that I didn't.
Why does this seem like a bunch of college students? Because I went to a Christian college, and literally that's what we would just look up the most terrible verses in the Bible and then quote them and write them on the wall or something like that. That's terrible. And I actually recently just read that, so that's funny.
actually take in anything.
I thought
Who's
Andrew-
McCall?
That's his wife. David's wife.
Oh, okay.
Saul's-
Masculine name. Yeah.
Saul's daughter.
God, is that
But
like
I
Michelle?
needed to find
Got it.
But I needed to find you a passage that said foreskins.
Give me my wife. Give me my wife, Michelle, whom I betrothed to myself. I betrothed her to me for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins. So he had to go out and collect 100 Philistine foreskins.
Yeah, to kill him, take the foreskins.
We don't know if he killed them. Did he?
Yeah,
did
he killed them.
100% killed them?
Yeah.
Man, you can't just find some Jewish people, see if they got some sticks like floating around, you know?
Yeah, start digging.
Dig them up.
That sounds so bad when you think about it. How is David such a good guy if he had to go? Obviously, it was in wartime, but Saul told him, he's like, surely he won't be able to get 100 foreskins. And he goes and does, and then he had to win the wife.
How this works.
Okay.
You know about dowries, right?
That's terrible.
Wow. This is old. This is Old Testament, though. This is Old Testament.
This is Old Testament, yeah, Samuel.
So
That's King David.
King David. Wow, boy, right? Wait, Philistine, are those the Palestinians? Is it the same people?
No.
Oh, still, well, yeah.
That's
Okay, so
still
who are
terrible.
the Philistines?
The Philistines are the bad guys. They are living in Canaan. And they're so like Goliath is a Philistine.
God.
Yeah, the Canaanites.
The Canaanites. Wow.
Why did he want the foreskins? What did that symbolize?
How did he get him off himself? Did he get him off himself?
Pagans? Yeah. Of course he did. He's got a sword.
But the old, a sword. Got it.
No, not the biting.
Yeah.
Chubby.
I mean, that sword gets dull.
What can you tell me about the Gospel of Thomas?
So
This is awesome. Thank you.
I went to the Coptic Museum in Cairo 2 years ago, and I saw the Nag Hammadi Library. So this is Nag Hammadi Codex II, which was discovered in 1945 and includes a bunch of Gnostic writings, including the Gospel of Philip, but the famous one is the Gospel of Thomas. And the Gospel of Thomas, which we knew about prior to this because it had been condemned in the ancient church, but we didn't have evidence for it in terms of physical documentation until in the 1800s in a place called Oxyrhynchus, Egypt. They found some fragments of this unknown gospel.
This is the sayings gospel?
Yes, 114 sayings.
Yeah.
This is an important one because the last saying of the Gospel of Thomas has Peter saying, "Let Mary leave us, for women are not worthy of life." Good start. And then Jesus says, "Don't worry, I will make her resemble a male like you males." And the last line of the Gospel of Thomas is, "Every woman who makes herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven."
Wow.
Look at that.
Look
at that.
Wait,
That's how we know that it's such a forgery. It's not even anything written by Thomas, because you can see, does it align up with Jesus? Does it align up with everything that he said before? No, God made all people in his image. Therefore, he doesn't. That means man and woman are created in the image of God. They don't have to become a man.
biting the foreskin is a modern thing. So there was one time when they were using a knife
I
and
don't know.
somebody
I don't
was
know
like,
enough about that.
Oh, okay.
That's
You
like
said it was a modern thing. I was like, wait,
rabbinical
wait.
Judaism.
Hold on. Go back to this right here.
Gospel of Thomas is fascinating.
But is it legit? What do they say? Was he?
No, it's second century. So you have these
So
other.
he's just saying some wild stuff in the name of God.
Yeah, so it's 114 sayings of Jesus talking to his disciples, and it's pretty early. It's our earliest.
But
of
written by
this,
a guy who's never met Jesus or any of his disciples.
Yeah, pretty conclusively. The Gospel of Thomas was not written by Thomas the disciple. But these other groups appropriate the names of the disciples to give credibility to their theology. So that's where you get Gospel of Peter, Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip, Gospel of Mary, Gospel of Judas. It's these other groups in the subsequent centuries, and they read back their theology onto the lips of Jesus in order to validate.
I have to pee. Excuse
Go,
me.
go. So, okay, and then is that what the what is it? The Book of Enoch or something like that?
So that's pre-Jesus.
oh, that's before.
Yeah.
It's Old Testament. Or
Yeah.
would have been.
Yeah, it's pseudepigraphical. So it's pseudo strange
Yeah.
graphe writing. So it's like a pseudonym is you want to write a book.
Yeah.
You don't want people to know it's Andrew Schultz. And so
Yeah,
you have-
Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. Yeah.
that's your pseudonym?
No,
You're Mark Twain?
I'm Mark Twain. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, it was a New York Orthodox who did that.
Yeah.
And so the pseudepigrapha are a group of writings that are associated with names that we know wasn't written. So Enoch is Noah's great-great-grandfather.
Right.
So the Book of Enoch we know isn't necessarily, it doesn't come from that time frame because that would be pre-flood.
It was written way after.
It was written in and around the 300 years after the Old Testament, beginning of New Testament. So in that period of time, they wrote a bunch of stuff. And part of it was Enoch.
What do you make of Enoch? As obviously a non-canonical text, but something that the people of the region might have been consuming.
Yeah, Enoch's very interesting. There's actually 3 Enochs, first, second, and third Enoch. And the only one that really has any kind of credibility is first Enoch. But even then, what we call first Enoch is a collection of different, so we have fragments in Aramaic and Greek in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but then we have later ones in Coptic. And so what ends up being published as, if you buy a copy of First Enoch, it's all of this stuff put together. Some of it is 200 years before Jesus, but some of it could very well have been written in the time frame of Jesus in the 1st century AD. But it's very clearly a collection of Jewish musings about what happened during the flood. It's very theologically in-depth fan fiction.
I was just about to ask that. Is it possible that it's Harry Potter?
I think it's them trying to figure, and this is common with the pseudepigraphical work, is that there's another one called the Exgoge of Moses, So they're looking at these Old Testament stories and they're trying to figure out, okay, like, how do we explain some of these things? You have this weird story in Genesis chapter 6 where the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and that's where you get the Nephilim and that kind of stuff. And so the Jews are like, how do we figure this stuff out? What are demons? What are angels? How do they interact with this world? There's not actually that much in the Old Testament about that stuff.
So let's
they
explore
write
it.
something like the gospel, or not the gospel, sorry, the Book of Enoch, to try to expand upon and extrapolate this stuff. Enoch is,
So you don't believe in the Nephilim?
well, yeah, they're in the Bible.
Yeah, the Nephilim.
It
are the
depends
Bible.
what you mean by Nephilim.
Well, what do you mean by it?
I don't know what you mean by it.
I mean,
I'll tell you whether I believe it.
I would love to believe that there's giants.
Yeah, well, Nephilim is a tricky term because we don't really know where it originates. So Nephal means to fall,
Right.
in Hebrew, and so that's where you get the idea of these are fallen angels.
Fallen angels, yeah.
But the Greek translation of the Old Testament translated as gigas, which is
Gigantic.
giants.
Yeah.
So, and then they pop up later in Canaan when what's his face?
Goliath.
Goliath.
Well, so not just Goliath, but when
It's Caleb and Joshua, right? Or is that Joshua sends Caleb? Says, at the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land, and they came to Moses and Aaron, to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran and Kadesh. They brought back word to them with the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. They told him, we came to the land of which you sent us, flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruits. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak, the Amalekites, dwell in the land of Nebed. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people. They are stronger than we are, saying, the land through which we gave to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And we saw the Nephilim. That's crazy.
there's these 10 spies that go to scope out the land that God has promised them, and then they come back and no, it's 12 men, and 10 of them are like, we can't go in there. There are giants there. And the term there is Nephilim. Like they're giants. I don't know if it's like they could just be spooked. They don't want to go in there, and so they come up with this excuse that there are giants in there. But because the idea of the flood is that they were destroyed, right? So everybody dies, including the Nephilim. But then you have guys like, C.S. Lewis. It's like Lewis and Tolkien had these ideas that these stories of like Zeus and the Greek gods, those were like echoes of cultural remembrances of these heroes of old, men of renown, which is what they're called.
Wow. So that's crazy. Super interesting. So I would love to know what you guys think in the comments down below, because this is wild. Definitely, I love learning more about the Nephilim and fallen angels. It's all so crazy and wild. So guys, I encourage you to put your faith and trust in Jesus. Know that he loves you. He's longing to have a relationship with you. If you've never decided to follow Jesus, in the description below will be a link to help you to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. I encourage you to do that today. It will be the best decision you could ever make.